For the latest in strategic affairs, subscribe to our YouTube channel. Click the bell icon for updates.
Hello and welcome to the Gist on Strat News Global. Hi, I'm Surya Gangadharan and welcome to another edition of the Gist. This evening we are focusing on the army of a next door neighbor. It's not Pakistan, it's actually Nepal. And the army has come under some criticism for various reasons. I have a small graphic here that I'd like to play at this point. The army brass has come under criticism from sections of opposition politicians. They have accused the army brass of signing what appears to be a draft agreement with the National Guard of the US state of Utah on cooperation in humanitarian and disaster management. The politicians say it's not the business of the army to sign such deals, and concerns have been voiced over its security implications, including what China and India would feel about it. So that's basically the controversy we're going to look at today. And I have with me Major General Binoj Basnyat, formerly of the Nepal Army. So welcome, glad to have you.
Thank you so much.
Yeah, can you hear me, sir?
Yeah, I can, yes.
So this controversy surrounding the Nepal Army is an old one, isn't it? Why has it popped up again so suddenly?
Well, before talking about the controversy of the army, I think we must look into the surroundings as well. Like, things have changed so much in the last decade. Like, if you take the strategic environment of South Asia and the Indo-Pacific region, so there is a reason behind why the army, because the army in Nepal is a very well respected force. People have a lot of trust on them. And the other thing is, it's a professional force which does not want to be very much linked with politics. But it so happened in this time that these SPP, or the State Partnership Program, which was signed by it was signed by the Chief of the Army Staff in coordinations with the government, because as the letter writes, that with the permission of the government, so he wrote a letter to the ambassador of the United States asking to be part of the SPP program, which was then endorsed by the United States Army in 2019. So the request was put forward in 2015 and 2017. So this is where the controversy, this is where it started, and the controversy started now. So this is after a few years. So, before going into the details of that, let me just put up a picture of how things would be in the 1970s in this part of the world, in South Asia, how it is now and how it is changing. And which is because, India and China were always our immediate neighbors, and particularly India has always been a great friend, whether the military relationship or the nation-to-nation relationship. We have been working together on our strides to stability, prosperity together. But now things have changed. Okay, the Himalayas are no more the borders. Let's say the sphere of influence of India or the South Asian continent has been slowly shifting. Indo-Pacific has become the center focus of the global environment now. So with all this, we have to look back, into what the United States is looking for in this region, because that does have an impact on how military performs. You see? So we have to look into the Indo-Pacific Strategy 2022. We have to look at the paper that has come out in the public is the National Defense Security, but which has not yet been endorsed, of the United States Army, and the National Security Strategy of the United States. So, vis-a-vis, we have to understand the Chinese Vision 2035, the China is making 2025, the white papers in Tibet 2021, the BRI, which was established in 2013, and the land borders law, which is just implemented this January, and what that connotes in South Asian region. So then when you relate this with India, it is the India's policy as the neighborhood first policy, which is on its stride now, and the relationship that the Indian security and the armed forces has with its neighbors. So with this, background, then I would like to bring out an issue of the SPP. United States has always been a good, cooperative security partner with the Nepali Army. They have been helping the Nepalese Army in their modernizations and capabilities development. So it is time we understand what SPP is. It's a state partnership program. One of these states, let's say of the United States, is in correction. So they have 85 programs with 93 countries. Okay, and Nepal is one of them. So if you talk about like South Asia and the BIMSTEC nations, the earliest was with Thailand, which joined the SPP in 2002. And the latest is Bangladesh and Maldives, which joined in 2020, 2021. So Nepal was in between. So besides that, no one is part of the SPC program in the BIMSTEC and SAARC region. So the SPP program is, dedicated actually for like humanitarian assistance. It's for disaster response. It's for aviation operations. It's for engineers activities, medical activities, cyber defense, counterterrorism, which is a need for the armies to understand each other, to link with each other, to know each other, so that we all can deal with common. That's what is with the Indian Army also. I mean, the Indian Army, the joint exercises that we do is basically to understand each other, how we operate, how we need to address the common challenges that may come about in the future. That is our preparedness. So we have to be ready for that. So why this thing has come out again, I'll take it later, but it is not due to the military cooperations or security cooperations or the people in uniform. It is because of the politicians who would like to see things in a different way.
I see. So it's basically politics which has torpedoed this SPP. Are you telling me that the SPP is now completely off the table? It is not going to happen at all?
Well, SPP, the government has, just about 2 weeks ago decided that we should go out, we should write a letter to the United States saying that to take us out of this, out of the SPP program. Okay. So when we look at the whole system, the SPP program, out of the 85 countries and 93 partners, Belarus has requested to be out of the program. And it is because of the geopolitical shifts there in the region in Central Asia, as well as it is because of the coercion by Russia. So, and the other country that has been put out is due to the human rights records is Cambodia. Okay? So besides now the Nepal is the second country that will ask the United States, the government will ask the United States to be kept away. But at the same time, is this in the interest of the military or is this in the interest of the country is a fundamental question. So if you ask me personally, I would say that our relationship with the United States Army must continue. It must move ahead in enhancing our capabilities, so the cooperation. So I hope the Nepalese Army would see this political game in the other side and continue their cooperation in the United States, though they will not be part of the SPP, in other bilateral means.
So let me come to my $1,000,000 question. Has the Nepali government succumbed to pressure from other quarters, external quarters, maybe China, which may not want to see a US presence, an enhancement of the US presence in Nepal?
Mhm. This is what thank you for the question. Actually, I really wanted to answer this. Actually, this is why I put up the background at the beginning. About the United States, China, and India's interest in the region, the increase of both political and economy, military relationship. So as soon as 3 days after the decision of the government of being asking the United States to put the Nepalese army away from the SPP program, China came up with a statement. The foreign ministry came up in the regular briefing, welcoming and applauded the government's decision to be out of the program. Stating that this is in the interest of Nepal, and this is not. But but this is not the first time in the American program. This is the second time. There was another talk. I'm sure everyone has heard about the Millennium Challenge Cooperation Nepal chapter, and though there was so much of talk about political debates in the legislature or among the political parties, it got through the parliament. But China did come out with a statement saying that, stating that the United States should not coerce with the Nepal's and Nepal's interest and in the sovereignty and integrity of Nepal. So this does indicate that China would like to see Nepal without the bigger powers or the superpowers engagement. I'm thinking that it will ultimately harm their interest in South Asia.
Mm-hmm. Now, there are some reports I've read which says that maybe India would also not like it. Some of these reports have been attributed to the Chinese. Are you aware of why India would object? Because from what I get here, India has no objection to anything you sign with the Americans.
Mm. I did hear about this in a certain quarters of the academic circle. Before I go to this question, let me say there are a few things that we have to watch in Nepal. One is, let me just highlight three things. One is there is a fear in the politicians, amongst the politicians who bring out these issues along on corruption issues. Okay, one. Second, they fear the human rights issues targeting them. Okay? And the third is the intentions behind the politicians speaking on behalf of certain countries. Okay, so these are the three things that they fear. So what happens is there are politicians in Nepal, rather than talking for the interest of the country, so they have been talking about or debating on what the other countries think. And together with that, there is a lot of disinformation and information and misinformation following in the media. Like, for example, when you talk about the SPP, this next day, there was a 10-point document in important broadsheets in Nepal saying that it was the American Army's plan to come up here in Nepal. But later on, the document was proved to be false. You see, and everyone and the people who were speaking were talking about the document. Debating about the document, and actually, it was a misinformation. It was not an original document at all. So this is what is happening. So I think we also have to better understand this. And as far as your question about India's reluctance, yes, there was talk about it might be the India not wanting extra regional powers in Nepal, so that it does not hinder the influence or India's participations in the let's say in Nepal. So, but again, I would like to stress, you see, this is another misinformation, disinformation, which I don't agree at all.
Yeah. Precisely my sense. So, some time back, Nepal had signed the Millennium Contract Agreement with the US, and that seems to have gone through despite Chinese opposition. So, where does Prime Minister Dioba stand on this SPP? Does he want it? Does he not want it? I understand there are plans for him to go to the US next month. I mean, in July.
Yeah, I mean, he has plans to go, but I don't think there is nothing to link the SPP program with the visits at all. So in Nepal, I see two things, two hurdles. I mean, in Nepal's, let's say geostrategic drive, two things. One is the era of defining what non-aligned policy is, and the other is obsessions with politicalization. So everything is politicalized here. So when you talk about non-aligned policies, and I mean there are principles that needs to follow, like so it was during the Cold War period when there were two blocs, the Soviet blocs led by the communists and the capital democratic blocs led by the. So that is when the non-aligned existed more than which also turned into a movement with 120 countries. But if you talk about the present context, it is the United States is the sole superpower, and China is the emerging power,
Yeah.
and India is a rising power. So there is no two blocks at all. So what I would see non-alignment today is non-alignment for small countries like Nepal is getting involved with as many countries as possible to benefit from them, so that though I feel that non-aligned movement will take stride in the long term, like when there may be two blocks, as we can, as people do talk about the Cold War 2.0 already begun, which I tend to agree. And so there may be a day again when the movement again needs to restart for, let's say, countries like Nepal, bordering China and India, and other, I'm sure other countries would definitely jump into the basket. Mm-hmm. But as far as China does not reach or does not become a communist bloc like the Cold War, and the Americans with another democratic bloc, I think non-aligned policy is more to be friendly with as many countries as possible, and to and then when you talk about politicalization, so let me join the MCC. Everything in Nepal, when it comes from democratic countries, is politicalized. Whether it's the MCC and see like Nepal chapter, I always supported MCC right from the beginning, because I knew it was a development project that would assist Nepal after 5 years on economic gains. So what is there? American boots are not going to come here in Nepal. I don't think the Nepalese ever would want to see that, you see. They never saw it in the colonial period, nor would they like to see it now. So the Nepalese have always stood as a sovereign nation. So but I mean, getting the economic infrastructure development and hydro potentials, the resources being utilized, and being able to sell it to India, which has started now so well, you see. Yeah. And when you see such a potential, so why did that particular development, infrastructure development need to be politicalized? And it's obvious the same reason, you see. And the second is the SPP now. So this has also been politicalized. It was a military cooperation, military to military cooperation. It's a security diplomacy, and it gets politicalized. And we should not deny the fact that even if there are things that come from India, and things will get politicized again. But what I would like to suggest is, the politicians must realize the basic facts of the interests of Nepal, so that the Nepalese win, and we countries which believe on democratic values win. rather than getting involved in other aspects, which doesn't lead us anywhere.
So let me ask you another $1 million question. Again, this is about China. Its political influence, China's political influence in Nepal runs rather deep, runs quite deep. Would you say that the Chinese influence in the Nepal army is also growing?
Well, growing in the sense, yes, we do have bilateral exercises with the Chinese on humanitarian and disaster relief operations. And the other is there is a lot of educational programs, exchanges of educational programs. Which every nation would do. You see, so but as far as the influence on a military thing goes, I don't think it is true. It is our as a neighbor, as a northern neighbor, a bordering neighbor. I think that there are circumstances, there are training programs that we go through, and so we do have a good relationship with them. But the influence, I don't think so.
Okay. So, how does, but you would still say that China is a major player in Nepal today. In fact, perhaps a more active player these days than India.
Okay, yeah. I see that. Yes, I see that. I see that in a political way. Okay, and I don't think this. So after the major changes in Nepal to a republic, to a secular state, and to a federal state, there are certain things that need. This came up with the initiation was the 12-point agreement that occurred in Delhi, and I don't think the 12-point agreement really came up with an exit strategy of how Nepal would be in another 10 years, 20 years, and so that the 12-point agreement would materialize and India would be looked upon as a really great help with the agreement. You see. But I think things have, as I told you, I don't think it has come out with an exit strategy. So the vacuum now has been taken over by China's political influence. Yes, China would always desire the leftist political parties in Nepal to unite so that they become a good political strength so that interests are met, which every country would definitely want.
Yeah,
So I think that is in the interest of China, and they did attempt for the lefts to unite, and I think they are still attempting for the left to unite because that if left come together and contest the coming up election that's going to happen in other 6-7 months, and which is going to be for another 5 years. This coming 5 years is going to be very crucial for not just Nepal, for democracy, for our neighbors, and for the international community also. So I think things are more being orchestrated or played more for that. So the change of government even now, and the UML party is the largest party in Nepal. But when you look at the government, it is the coalition government that is ruling the, and everything is aimed at the elections now.
yeah.
So what I feel is, yes, China is would like to see their favorable government, though they do engage with the democratic parties and the day-to-day government, which is their usual practice. But I'm sure they would like to see the left party unite for the coming up election, so that things should be, so that the political side of the features would come into being more favorable uh, to the Communist Party of China and the Communist Party of Nepal. Uh,
So,
so
last
I'm, I'm,
question, sir.
yeah.
Last question. Where does India stand today in Nepal?
Well, India, has always stood very prominent and is still above, stands prominent. And I think Nepal must work together with India And look at the. I mean, I'm being from the military background. Look at the relationship that the Indian Army and the Nepalese Army have. I mean, we have been moving together in such a way that there is nothing that can break our bond, the strong bond that the two armies has. And India's security, I mean, security concerns in Nepal is where we have to deal with also. So what I personally feel is India is a very prominent friend, and I think all of the political parties, the leadership, whether they are left or right, I think they realize that there must be a way and a means in balancing the international environment at the same time keeping a very special relationship with India.
So, on that note, a rather ominous note that you have sounded, we'll come to the end of this program. It's been a lot of insights, sir, into in Nepal's internal developments, and you've been very frank. Thank you very much. It's been a pleasure.
It's a soldier's way of speaking, you know. So I hope, I mean, but one thing let me stress once again is this coming 5 years is going to be very important, and if people need to act now.
Thank you, sir. Thank you again.
For
And to
having
those of
me.
you who those of you who have joined us on this conversation, do subscribe to our YouTube channel, follow us on social media and Twitter and Instagram. Thank you and good night.